Thank God it's over. Thank you. Thank you. I'm so happy we don't have to do this thing. I'm so happy we don't have to keep pretending. Or honestly, it wasn't audiences that were pretending. Some of y'all were. But I'm so glad that Sony does not have to keep pretending that we want these movies, nor did they make any sense. I am so glad we can just end this entire thing because my God, it is absolutely pretty mind-boggling. It's pretty baffling how you could release such a string of bad movies and it gets pivotally clear in each one that you release you are not even trying to learn your lesson from the previous film. These movies have gotten progressively worse. They don't care at all about the dialogue. They don't care about the characters. They don't care about anything but making some money. And it is our fault. I include myself in it because I paid money to watch these things. But I also did it because I wanted to review. But I wasn't reviewing things when the first Venom came out. And yet, here we are. I think Venom came out in 2018. Here we are 6 years later. It is finally over. Let's just get this over with, y'all. This is Kraven the Hunter. Hey guys, it's your guy in the chair here, and this is my review for Kraven the Hunter, starring Aaron Taylor Johnson, Russell Crowe, Fred Harkenher, I'm not saying his name right, Fred Harkenher, but whatever, Ariana DeBose, Christopher Abbott, and it was directed by J.C. Shandor, hopefully I'm saying his name right, and basically our story follows Kraven the Hunter, who is basically the best way I can sum this up is his brother, he has a very special relationship with his brother, a very complicated relationship with his father. His brother gets kidnapped by the Rhino's men, and basically he goes on a vengeance rampage to basically save his brother and I guess mend the relationship with his father as best as he can. Not really. That is a shitty way for me to describe the plot, but unfortunately, guys, that is the best way I can describe it because the plot is all over the place. So look, let's just get right into it. I'm going to talk about what I liked about the movie because surprisingly, I liked the first 20 minutes of the movie. And I will say this. I think of all the Sony Spider-Man-less verse movies that have come out, I think as a whole movie, there is like 10 to 15 minutes in each one that I could truly either deem watchable or entertaining. So Kraven beat the record here. Kraven for 20 straight minutes, which is ridiculous. And honestly, 20 straight minutes, because in the other movies, it's 10 to 15 minutes as far as like sporadic moments in the movie. It's not 10 to 15 minutes straight and then it just falls off a cliff. No. In other Sony Spider-Man-less verse movies, for the movies can be an hour and 40 minutes or 2 hours. For 10 to 15 minutes of those times, I actually enjoyed whatever was going on screen. I guess, maybe, not really. But Kraven, the first 20 minutes of this movie, I can actually say were good. Then it all goes to complete crap. And it completely just baffles me. It truly makes no sense because I literally sat here for the first 20 minutes going, they're actually doing a good job of telling this backstory and actually building to something here. I'm like, is this the? I was looking around in my theater. I'm like, is this the moment they do this? Is this the moment they make an actual like watchable, entertaining movie? At least, no, not at all. Not at all. Now, the first 20 minutes mainly spends time dealing with the young Kraven and his brother's relationship and telling the backstory of that. It does have some action sequences with Aaron Taylor Johnson as well, and those are done very well. After the first 20 minutes of the movie, once you are completely thrown into what the plot of this movie is and what is about to happen for the remaining hour 40, this movie, I lied to you not, literally tries. It's literally trying to be the worst of the Sony movies. It's ridiculous. And honestly, I will say this. Any complaints I have about this movie, remove Aaron Taylor Johnson from them all. Because one thing I will say about this movie is that if this movie was put in the right hands, Aaron Taylor Johnson could truly be an amazing Kraven. I truly think there's something there. The entire time I'm watching this movie, the agility, the way he's moving, the action sequences are pretty entertaining, and his demeanor as Kraven, I'm like, there's something here. If y'all would have just given this to maybe I guess Marvel, because Sony clearly don't know what to do with these projects. If you would have given this project to somebody else and a director that truly understands the Kraven character and truly understand what makes this world cool and makes his character awesome, you really could have had something going for yourself there, because y'all really wasted Aaron Taylor Johnson. I will say that, and I'll say this because I feel like I've been a little hard on Aaron Taylor Johnson as of late. I was not a fan of Bullet Train, was not a fan of The Fall Guy. And I felt like those were definitely like Aaron Taylor Johnson was a pretty pivotal reason in the reasons I did not like those movies. But here it's not his fault. This has nothing to do with Aaron Taylor Johnson. First of all, the man's abs themselves deserve a 5 out of 5 stars. Like, wow. Like, the physique that this man pulled off in this movie is ridiculous. And for y'all to let this man work so hard on his body to give him such wasteful and crappy dialogue is truly just ridiculous. And so, like I said, none of this is Aaron Taylor Johnson's fault. I'm not going to put this on Aaron Taylor. Honestly, most of the actors and actresses in this movie, I'm not necessarily going to fault for the crap that they were given, because the dialogue is honestly some of the worst, cringiest comic book dialogue I've heard since X-Men The Last Stand. Beyond that, Ang Lee's Hulk in 2003, Daredevil, Ben Affleck and Jennifer Gardner. I'm talking about this dialogue is resemblance of when comic book movies were first coming out, and they were as cringy as you could possibly think. I think there was I want to say there was like a really old like Avengers movie, but maybe that's not. Maybe I'm thinking of something else, so I'm not going to go there. But this movie really reminds me of all of the older comic book movies in the worst way possible. And I have heard other people say that as well, but it's real. It's true. And like I said, once that first 20 minutes is over and this movie gets into the actual plot and what this thing is actually supposed to be about, it takes a tremendous cliff dive. It truly is literally trying to be the worst Sony movie ever. I don't even understand why go through 6 months of reshoots if you were literally just going to pull out shit products anyway. If you were if you're telling me whatever version of this movie existed 6 months ago where y'all decided y'all needed to do reshoots, if you're telling me that's worse than this, I can only imagine what that was. I can only imagine what that movie was like, because this one here is really not good at all. It is truly horrible, mainly due to the fact that the Rhino is ass. And I'm not talking about the look. I'm talking about I'm going to try not to fault the actors too much for this, because I don't necessarily know whose choices these were in a lot of their character decisions. The Rhino is easily the worst villain in the Sonyverse. And that's really surprising, because we're literally coming off the Spider guy. I don't even remember the Spider guy from Madam Web. We are literally coming off of that guy, and Venom. The Last Dance, I will say, is the best Sonyverse movie by far. And honestly, the third act is is very good, or not very good. The third act, in my opinion, in that movie is pretty good. It's pretty entertaining. The relationship between Eddie and Venom are the main heartbeat of that movie, which is why I think it works so well. So that aside, Rhino is easily the worst villain in the entire Sony universe thus far, and that's saying something. Because Riz Ahmed in the first Venom, I hated his villain. Woody Harrelson as Carnage. It's not Woody's fault. That's why I say I can't really fault these actors for a lot of these plot holes or these plot points and a lot of these just really ass development moments for these characters, because Woody Harrelson is the perfect Carnage in my opinion. Like he is a great Cletus, whatever his last name is, but he was a very good Carnage. It's just when you get to the end of Let There Be Carnage and they try to say that love is the reason that, Woody and his symbiote don't work really well together, miss me with all that, because the whole point of Carnage is that him and Cletus are literally like the perfect mesh. Like between symbiote and man, they are literally the perfect combination. And I am going to talk about Rhino in a second. So that, but and then what other? Matt Smith and Morbius. I'm telling you, like we have really had to sit through some terrible villains. And for me to be sitting here and saying Rhino's the worst, it truly just don't get. I'm telling you, there is a literal moment in this movie where this dude, one of his henchmen delivered bad news to him, and the character and the actor that's playing Rhino literally just goes, like he's trying to yell, like he's yelling, but he's not yelling, like he's like I don't know what he's doing. I don't know what that is. My entire theater burst out into laughter during that movie, or during that part. And honestly, for the last like 40 minutes, this becomes one of the funniest comic book movies I've ever seen, but for all the wrong reasons. You're just laughing at how bad it is, and how bad it's getting, and how it truly has no intention of getting any better, or at least trying to remotely be a good movie, or at least a decent one. I mean, I am truly just not disappointed. I'm just grateful that this is over. I'm truly just grateful that we don't have to sit through these movies anymore, because I don't know who is necessarily in charge of this Sony universe, but for you to release, let me see, 3 Venom movies, Morbius, Madam Web, there's 6. For you to release 6 movies, and wow. Were they trying to hint at the Sinister Six in that? Maybe. They released 6 movies, and they did not learn their lesson in any aspect whatsoever. These movies, honestly, just the more these movies came out, they got worse, except Venom: The Last Dance. The plot is just all over the place. They never learned their lesson from that. They truly... I think there's a huge misrepresentation or misunderstanding of these characters in this Sony universe, because there's just so many aspects missing beyond Spider-Man. Like Spider-Man missing is a huge part of it, and we are all just questioning why they're making these anti-hero movies in the first place. But there's just so many decisions that have been made, not only with Kraven himself, but just with all of these anti-hero characters that just don't make any sense. Like for the life of me, I'll never forget watching the first Venom movie, and Venom literally says to Eddie, "I'm a loser on my planet. I don't feel like I belong," or some shit like that. That let me know right then and there that these people don't really know anything about these characters whatsoever. So there's just been a complete misuse of these characters. Beyond that, I'll say this movie did everything it could to fit like 5 different plot lines in one movie. And I'll say this, the movie actually could have been a lot better if they had just pivotally focused on the family dynamic between Aaron Taylor Johnson, Russell Crowe the dad, and Fred Herkinger from White Lotus and Gladiator 2 as the brother. If they truly just focused on the brother dynamic and made Russell Crowe the big bad, and then Rhino was like his henchman or his sidekick, that would have made for a much better movie. For Rhino to be the main villain in this thing doesn't work whatsoever, and his motivation stinks. His motivation is literally, I went on an exploration with your dad once, he called me weak, now I want to be a supervillain. The motivation for these villains suck. They're just non-existent. They literally just have these villains. It reminds me of Riz Ahmed's motivation in the first Venom movie, where his entire purpose of running the experiments of trying to put symbiotes on people was to see if people could live in space, because he felt like the Earth was crumbling and dying. Why are you a bad guy? What about that? That just, you really were trying to do something to help people, but because they're dying and you're just looking at them like, oh, I don't care. Like you're just being a jerk for no reason whatsoever. Like you couldn't, like, I guess because he knew people could die, that's what makes him the big bad in that movie. But it's like his whole purpose of the symbiote experiments is to see if they can merge with people and live somewhere else because the Earth is dying. I don't really see why that makes you a bad guy, but, live your life, I guess. And here, Rhino's motivation stinks. And I'm not going to necessarily fault the actor because, like I said, I don't know if they are solely in charge of the character choices they make. I don't necessarily think they are. And a lot of the silly shit that they have people doing in this movie, like I said, I truly just chalk it up. It's all Sony's fault. I'm not going to fault any of these actors. Ariana DeBose, though, I will say this. I need her agent to get it together. Ariana DeBose is way too talented to be playing in movies like this. She is a too extremely talented to be in crap projects like Argyle and now Kraven the Hunter. And let me see what else has she been in? Oh, she was in Wish too. No, we got to get it together. We got to get it together because Wish is one of the worst Disney movies I've seen in a while. But regardless, guys, here we are again. Another Sony Spider-Man list movie that, to nobody's surprise, sucks ass. Sucks major donkey ass. Like, it is. And the thing about it is, this movie had so much potential in the first 20 minutes. I really wish they would have just focused solely on the family aspect and the family dynamic of the father and the two brothers. But they do everything in their power to just make this movie as uninteresting as humanly possible. The other thing that I truly can never wrap my head around with this movie, or with these movies, is the fact that they all follow the same cycle. They will have at least portions of entertaining material or engaging material enough for you to be interested in what's going on. The problem is the next thing that happens loses you so fast. In all of these movies, by the time we get to the third act, I am literally struggling to find a single fuck to give about what is going on screen. It is, now, like I said, Venom: The Last Dance's third act is easily the most entertaining out of all of these Sony movies. It's easily the best, like, action-wise, and it's honestly it's easily the most entertaining one. And I really mean that. It's actually entertaining. Like, to watch all those symbiotes fight at the end of Venom: The Last Dance was actually pretty entertaining. But like I said, the main thing that was carrying that movie and the only thing that was keeping me interested was the fact that Eddie and Venom's dynamic is coming to an end. Their relationship is just being, fleshed out because we're getting to the end of their, relationship. That's the only reason that movie really works, because if not for that, it would have just followed the same pattern as the other two Venom films and the rest of these movies, which is completely building very paint dry, bland, boring characters that do absolutely nothing to serve a story, nothing to make anything interesting, and it's just ridiculous, guys. Here we are yet again. This shit sucks. But who's surprised, right? Like, why are we even surprised at this point? But also, I do want to shout out, his name's Levi Miller. He plays the young Kraven. Pretty good. The first 20 minutes truly had me fooled, because I actually thought maybe for a second that Sony learned their lesson, but they showed me immediately after, no, we're still making the same shit, and we're just going to put you through this because we can. Whatever. I hope you guys are happy. Look, just be glad you don't have to watch any Sony Spider-Man list verse movies anymore. Be glad that this is over. As a wise man once said, don't cry because it happened. Or no, wait. Don't cry because it's over. Cry because it happened. Now that I'm saying that out loud, I don't necessarily think that's the saying. But if we're in terms of the Sony verse or the Sony Spider-Man list verse, that actually might work. Don't cry because it's over. Cry because it happened. Because I'm crying regardless. I'm actually going to cry now because I'm going to cry because it's over. Tears of joy. I'm happy. And for all those reasons and so many more, guys, I'm going to give Kraven the Hunter a 1.75 out of 5 stars. Okay, guys, so Kraven the Hunter, have you seen it? What did you think about it? Honestly, don't go watch it. Don't go watch it, guys. Seriously, don't do it. Don't do it. It's okay. You don't like. There are. I know how it feels when people are hyping up how bad a movie is, and you're just like, oh my god, I gotta see if it's really that bad. Please do yourself a favor and stay home. However, if you have seen it, let me know what you guys thought about it. Thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff, and so much more. Look, this is your guy in the chair. More content coming to you soon.